Very much. So we're going to be talking about productive self-talk. What I'm going to do first thing is right away, I'm going to break you into small groups because I want you to answer those questions real quick. I want to know, what does resilience mean to you? I want to know the 3 words that you used to capture resilience, and what are the strengths, skills, and abilities you believe are critical for resilience. I'm going to put you into 3 rooms, so there should be about 4 of you per room. A couple minutes, just have that conversation, figure out, because I like to make sure everybody has their own impression of what resilience means and what mental performance, what mental strength means. So go have those conversations, then we're going to jump back in. Close those breakout rooms. All right. So who wants to share their thoughts? What did you talk about? What does resilience mean to you? And what are the 3 words that capture resilience? Who had good group discussion?
I'll go, Neil, so we can break the silence and get the
right on. Thanks, Tony.
For you. So tenacity, grit, I think perseverance, pivoting, adapting, all strong words that we brought up in our little meeting.
Nice. Okay, good. Yeah. So, there's clearly no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of what it means to you, and make sure that you understand what does it mean to you, and how can you best utilize the skills. So why resilience? So resilience to me is a set of skills, and this is my little tag that I use. It helps you develop skills to grow and thrive through stress and adversity and propel your mental performance from good to great. I use that because, number one, for skills, because everybody has the ability to develop skills so they can be a bit more mentally strong, more emotionally connected. And it's encouraging and it's empowering to people that you can learn these things and you can get better at them. The other idea behind that is growing and thriving. A lot of people I hear a lot of people talk about bouncing back, and I understand the point of that. I don't like using that because if you're going to go through a significant amount of stress and significant adversity, I would hope that you would grow and thrive and that you would be better and stronger and more capable and more confident. I don't want you to be the person that you were before you went through that stress or that adversity. Constant growth and thriving. I use the analogy of grass. So if you imagine, if you have a truck that drives through your front yard or some type of field, imagine the damage that's going to be caused. That's my kind of analogy of an adverse effect, where there's going to take a significant amount of work to get that back, and hopefully you're going to build it up and make it better than it was before. Likewise, if I walk out my front door and I head out to my mailbox, I'm going to walk right through my front yard. And once or twice, that is not going to be a big deal. But if you do that 30 days, 40 days, 50 days, you're going to wear a path. And that's the idea that the daily stress that we go through builds. And you need to make sure that you're managing that stress appropriately and that you've got the short-term coping mechanisms and the long-term skills that's going to help you through that. So you're not going to wear down that path. Because not only are you wearing down a path, but you're also creating habits. And a lot of times they're counterproductive habits that once you ingrain them, they're going to be hard to change. Mental, emotional, and physical. I primarily work on mental, although mental, emotional, and physical are interconnected. If you have significant adversity or stress in one area, all 3 are going to be affected. If you want to optimize one, you're really going to have to work on all of them. However, I like to start with the mental because in my mind, so much of it starts there. If you can work on the mental side, you're going to have the emotional connection. You're going to have the physical strength because your mind can endure so much more than your body can. And then the other idea, and I'm going to be hitting on this a lot, you can't have a positive outcome from a negative input. And that can be in any area of your life. If you input negative, you're going to get negative. If you want positive, you have to interject positive. The body wants positive. And we've all seen I lost you guys. I got to find you. Hang on a second. I got to stop this. There we go. I got to put it back on top. I can't see you guys, and I feel like I'm talking to nobody. So I got to have something. There we go. All right. Now you're all back there again. So the idea of an iceberg, the things on top, decisions, the actions, and the behaviors, that's what people can see of you. There's so much more to you, whether you're talking about your skills, your emotions, your physiology, your values, and your beliefs. Those are all things within you. And those are the things that you have to figure out and you have to control. You have to have a better idea of that because your decisions, your actions, your behaviors are going to be reflected by what's inside of you. What we're going to be talking about today is a self-awareness tool that is going to help you regulate, but I focus primarily on self-awareness because until you're aware, you don't know what to regulate and you don't know how to regulate it. So it's very, very important to be self-aware. So the foundation of resilience and mental performance is simply this. If you want effective emotions, and if you want to have an effective physical state, you have to have effective self-talk. Self-talk drives emotions and physical reactions. If you have productive self-talk, you will have productive emotions and physical reactions. But if you have counterproductive self-talk, you're not going to get the effective emotions and physical reactions that you're looking for. So we're going to be talking about identifying heat of the moment thoughts. Can you see the PowerPoint right now? Somebody said they can't see it. Oh, okay. See, this is why I'm doing this, because I need to figure this out. There we go.
I see it.
There we go. All right. Figuring this out. Thank you very much, Angela, for letting me know. Okay. So thoughts drive emotions and physical reactions. So let's put that into I'm going to jump ahead here. Let me put that into a scenario that you can imagine, right? So let's put this into a framework. So that thought bubble is something that you can put in quotes. That's your thoughts. But first you have activating events. Activating events are the who, what, when, and where. Just the facts of a situation, right? It could be significant adversity, like death of someone you care about, or it could be a minor issue like a parking ticket. But don't always think about it as negative, because positive things are still stressful, right? Having a baby, getting a promotion, going on vacation, that's still stress that you have to deal with and you have to account for. So what I want you to do is imagine that word trigger. That's the most important thing that I want you to take from that first box. Somebody was dinging trying to get in. All right, so thought bubble. These are your thoughts. These are your interpretations of the activating event. It's what you say in the heat of the moment. And most of the time they're immediately after, and a lot of times you don't even realize that they've happened. Heat of the moment thoughts. Heat of the moment thoughts are going to give you consequences. Consequences in the form of your emotions and your physical reactions. Now, your emotions are feelings and your reactions are behaviors. And understand that your reactions can be things that you do and also things that you don't do, because avoiding a person or avoiding a situation is still an action. So I want you to imagine for emotions, it's things you feel, reactions, it's things that you do. So let's put that into two scenarios. So two areas that I like to teach. One is in the moment. So imagine you are in an argument with someone that you care about. And the first thought that pops into your head is, they never listen to what I have to say. What are some emotions that would drive for you? And you can either, pop open your microphone and say it. You can type it into chat, however you want to do it. But if you're in an argument with somebody that you care about, somebody you're close to, and the first thought is they never listen to what I have to say, what does that make you feel? What kind of emotion does that lead to?
Automatic negative emotions.
Okay, like what? Give me examples.
Upset.
Okay. Give me like a one-word emotion.
Anger.
Anger.
Frustrated.
Frustrated. Good. Give me one more.
Doubt.
Doubt. Okay. I see.
Annoyed.
Okay. Annoyed. Good. Okay. The three that I thought about were frustrated, irritated, and angry. I'm sorry. I can't see the chat. Scott, thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate it, even though you're late. I appreciate it. So you're frustrated, irritated, angry. If you are in a situation where you're in an argument with someone you care about, and your first thought is they never listen to what I have to say, leads you to being angry, what kind of physical reactions do you have associated with that? What do you feel physically?
Hot.
Yeah. Body heat increases.
Right.
What does body heat increase usually associated with?
Physical.
Your heart's pumping.
Yeah,
Right.
your heart's racing. There you go.
The
Your heart
fight or
racing.
flight response.
Yep, fight or flight response. You're getting tense. Your muscles are getting tense. Those are physical reactions. And it's important to remember that every thought that you have has an emotion and a physical reaction to it. Every single thought that you have has a response to it. It may seem insignificant and you may not feel it because it's not a strong one. But the stronger the thought, the stronger the emotion and the physical reaction is. That way, that's why it's so important to be aware of your counterproductive thoughts, because they're going to feed into something eventually. So let's do another scenario. Let's talk about event preparation. It's something that we've all done before. We've all taken a test before. But let's say you walk in and take a test and suddenly you start feeling anxious. Your heart's racing, your muscles are tense, and you can't remember the information that you've studied, right? And we're talking best case scenario where you're ready. You've studied and you're ready to go. What are some of the thoughts that you might have that would lead to you being anxious and your heart racing and your muscles tense as you're walking in to take a test?
It's the negative self-talk, isn't it? It's the uncertainty of self.
Right. Well, give me like in something you would put in quotations. What's something that you're actually saying to yourself?
I'm going to fail.
I'm going to fail. Right? What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? What if, or I'm not ready, or who am I to think that I can do this? Right? That's going to lead to being anxious, your heart racing, your muscles tense. But let's put that in the situation where, okay, you know how to prepare. And let's say that you want to feel calm, you want to feel confident, and you want controlled heart rate and steady breathing. What's the productive thoughts that you can have that leads to calm and confident?
I've got this.
It's going to be a piece of cake.
This is good. I got this. It's a piece of cake, right?
No,
Remember, we talked about best case scenario. You know you're ready. You've been studying. You've been doing everything that you're supposed to be doing. But for some reason, you felt anxious. You can combat that by walking in the room prior to walking in the room, telling yourself, I got this. I'm prepared. And tell yourself, breathe and relax. Just breathe and relax. You've got this, right? So you've got event preparation and you've got in the moment. And in the moment can be difficult, especially the closer you are to a situation, the more emotionally connected you are to a situation, can be difficult. Don't confuse simple with easy, right? This is simple. It's not necessarily easy. So we all have situations where we handle it well. Other times we don't necessarily handle it so well. It could be situations, it could be people that we deal with. This is a self-awareness tool to help you identify those things so that you can work it backwards. Say, hey, last time I felt this, I want to feel this instead, right? Or you get caught into a situation, you can see this now. And what this does for you is it provides an accountability tool. Because now you're going to walk around and every event and every situation, you're going to pop up. You see 2 boxes in a thought bubble. It's going to happen, I'm telling you. And you're going to see an event, right? And you're going to put all the situations, all the information, the who, what, where, when of the event. And you're going to either have a thought bubble or you're going to have an emotion, right? If you feel the emotion, you can work it backwards and say, what thought am I having that drives that emotion? Because that's how it works. And the point is not to remove emotion. Emotion is important and it has its place. But emotion is the result of your thoughts. We're not driven by emotion. We should not be driven by emotion. We should feel emotion as a result of what we're telling ourselves. That's how the brain works. So I had you think ahead to some recent or meaningful examples. Hopefully you came up with something because we're going to be working on that in a little bit. But first, I'm going to throw you back into your groups because I'm going to do a little drill here, something I love to do. And this is my first time doing it on the webinar. Hopefully it's going to go the same. I'm going to break you into groups and I want you to pick one person that's going to write. And what I want that person to do is you're going to take a piece of paper and you're going to write a line right down the middle. On one side, you're going to put a plus sign. On the other side, you're going to put a negative sign. Represents positive emotion, negative emotion. And I want you as a team and the time allotted to come up with as many emotions as you can. Synonyms count. Just come up with as many emotions as you can. All right, so I'm going to throw you back into breakout groups and I will see you. It's probably going to be the same groups. That's fine. All right, see you in a couple minutes. But I think we got everybody back. So whoever had the notes, and of course, Carlos, you bailed early. So what's a number? Like how many positive, how many negative, and what's the total that your team came up with?
Our team came up with 10 positive and 13 negatives.
10 positive, 13 negative. Okay.
Yeah.
We had 15 positive and 10 negative when I bailed out of the group.
Okay. How about the other group? Where were you at? Anybody? That's all right. Okay, so what did you think? So going through this exercise, what were your thoughts?
Well, at first I was thinking that we had a lot of negative emotions, and then it started to even itself out, and then the positive just took over the negative.
Yeah. That happened organically, or did you actually have to like actually discuss that you had too many negative and you had to come up with more positive?
I mean, it happened organically, but I did mention it that, hey, I was starting to notice the trend here, but it evened itself out before, and I mentioned it kind of.
Got it. Okay. What other thoughts do you have? What did you learn from this?
Me personally?
Anybody who
anybody.
What did you anybody, what did you think when I put you into the group and you started going through it? What was going through your mind?
This will be a short list because I don't think we're very good at articulating emotions.
Okay.
Just in general. That's like not anything generalizing my group, but I think in general people aren't very good at it.
Okay. Yeah, and actually that's not too far off, because a lot of times when I do these groups, you're looking between, probably 20 and 30 is where most groups fall into. So it's not that far off. You get a 23 and a 25. So, but the comment about negatives seem to come out a little bit faster is also very common. It's very rare that I have teams that accidentally come out with more positives. It usually has to be something that they talk about, and they have to decide, hey, we've got too many negative. This something doesn't feel right. We got to come up with more positive emotion. So that's actually very common in people. It's called the negativity bias, where we have a tendency to look for the negative instead of the positive. And that's actually a defense mechanism, and it's a good thing for humans because it's a survival mechanism. It makes us look for danger. The problem is, if you think about the world we live in, generally speaking, it's a pretty safe place, because other than looking left and right so I don't get hit by a car, what kind of dangers do I face in the world today? But your brain still has that tendency to want to go look for negative things. And if it can't find danger, it's still going to find gossip and rumors and other type of negativity. So it's a trait that we carry with us. It's a human trait, and you have to fight against that. Some of us are a little bit better than others, but I think we all could probably remember a time where maybe we were focusing a little bit more on the negative, and there you go. That's a good example of, hey, we had a whole bunch of negative emotions. We actually got to think of some positive. So having that mindset of constantly making sure that you're not falling victim to the negativity bias. The other thing that I point out to people is why so many similar words, right? So not only why so many words, but why so many similar words, right? So what's the difference between happy and glad? Why would you write down happy and glad? What's the point?
Because I could be happy that I hit the lottery and glad I didn't get hit by a car today. I think those are two different kinds of happinesses.
Nice. Well, instead that's it. Because I could probably ask that question to each of you, and you're all going to give your own example, because different people feel different feelings differently, right? We all feel things different. If I was to ask you, what does it mean to be frustrated? Not only are you going to have a different meaning than any number of people, but it may depend based on the situation that you're facing. So having a large variety of emotions is important, because not only is it going to help you process your emotions, because you need to know what you're feeling, but it also lends to things like emotional intelligence and empathy. If you have a large variety of words and experiences of what emotions you can feel and how they feel, you might be more empathetic to people and how they're feeling certain things. So it's really important to increase your vocabulary. And also there's, words being similar, like furious and mad. What's the difference? Well, I don't know. What's the difference between being upset, mad, and feeling rage, right? We're talking about intensity is having that vocabulary so you can explain, okay, maybe I'm not mad, maybe I'm frustrated, right? There's a significant difference between the two, but you have to understand what that means. Also, I heard a really interesting Simon Sinek talk where he said there's a difference between nervous and excited. What are the physical, what do you feel physically when you feel nervous? What are some of the things that you might experience physically?
You pull back when you're nervous, and you go forward and you're excited.
Okay, so maybe hesitant, or lean back, lean forward. What else?
little bit of dread.
Okay. What are some physical experiences that you're
Sweaty palms.
Sweaty palms. There you go. What else?
The armpits.
Okay. Yep. So sweaty hands. Again, going back to maybe your heart's racing, your muscles tense, maybe you're fidgety, right? Maybe you're pacing. What are some physical reactions associated with being excited?
Can't stand still.
Yep.
You know,
You're fidgety, your heart's racing, you're probably getting sweaty palms, right? So what really is the difference between being nervous and excited? It's really about your mindset and how you're viewing the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I even use that for things like fear and anxiety. When you feel fear and anxiety, you're focusing on things that you can't control. So focus on things you can control, and you're going to have more control over the resulting emotion, right? Because anxiety is not driving you. Anxiety is the result of what you're thinking. If you're focusing on things you can't control, you have thoughts in your head that are getting you to focus on things that you can't control. So you have to have productive thoughts. And that goes to, and I did this as a little bit of a setup. I don't even want you to think about emotions as positive and negative, because really, can you think of a time where anger would be the proper emotion to feel at a particular time? Right? I'm sure you can think of a time where anger was appropriate, or a time where it was appropriate to be sad, right? So don't think about emotions as positive and negative. I want you to, because emotions are the results of what you think, I want you to look at emotions as productive and counterproductive. Productive and counterproductive, because it's what you're driving to. You want to feel calm and confident. So what do I need to say to myself in order to drive the productive emotion? Because you can think about grief. We think about, being sad or being depressed or denial. Well, those are all three part of the grieving process. So if I effectively go through the grieving process and I feel the emotions appropriately, I'm going to process those emotions. I'm going to process my thoughts, and I'm going to come out growing and thriving on the other side. The problem comes when you try to suppress an emotion or you ignore an emotion, you don't process it effectively. So being sad is not bad. Being angry is not bad. It just depends on what are you trying to accomplish? What's the most effective emotion that you want to feel at that moment? So think about emotions as productive and counterproductive. So let me pop on through here. So when they were doing, a lot of the information that I teach comes from University of Pennsylvania. Really strong psychology department out there, even positive psychology. And one of the things that they realized doing research is they started seeing a thought consequence connection, right? So thoughts resulting in emotions and physical reactions. They started seeing, typically, not 100%, but typically people think along the same lines. So first one, and can everybody see my slide? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for the thumbs up. All right. So the first one, so loss. So most people, if you lost something, so as in I lost something that I value or I care about, typically people will feel sadness and a little bit of withdrawal. So the example of my grandma died, or my dog died the other day. Do you need anything? No, I just need a couple days, right? So that's a natural reaction, not necessarily bad. It's just a natural reaction. People have a tendency to feel sadness and withdrawal. And you can go down that list, and this is in your workbook also. But you can look at trespass. I've been harmed, so therefore I feel anger and aggression. If I positively contribute, where I've contributed in a positive way, I feel pride, and I want to share, and I want to plan for future achievements. So this graph right here shows you, typically, this is how people will have their thoughts match up with their emotions and their physical reactions. And then we're going to come back to this. This is important because I'm going to set you up to do a drill based on an experience that you might have had recently. So get my mouse here. There you go. Also, this is also helpful because you might find that you fall into a pattern. Say somebody might have an anger management problem. They fall into the pattern of feeling anger and aggression for certain things. And that's helpful for them because then they can watch out for those situations and, again, have the productive self-talk. Speaking from experience, because I put myself through anger management when I was in my 20s, and that's primarily what they talked about is you're talking yourself into being angry. So you need to stop doing that, and you need to have more productive thoughts that lead to different emotions and different reactions. Again, self-awareness tool. So going back to this, but with a little bit of a twist, what's important to remember here is that not only are your thoughts driving your emotions, but you have to be careful, because your emotions and your physical reactions, if they're not productive, can be a new trigger. And they can end up leading to more counterproductive thoughts, and you get in this vicious cycle. Now, the other thing to remember here is there's multiple points of entry. And we talked about this a little bit before. You can have a thought that leads to a productive emotion, or you could be having emotions, not understand why. So you pause, take a deep breath, and go back to what's the thought that is driving this emotion. And really, really important here is the idea that your events do not cause your emotions. Driving in traffic does not cause you to be angry, right? Your kid's not cleaning up the room does not cause you to be frustrated. Your thoughts are what drive your emotions. So don't be a victim of circumstance. Let me pop that up here. Don't be a victim of circumstance. Don't let the events drive your emotions. You are in control of your thoughts. And that's where you're going to have the most productive effect, is to make sure that you're having productive thoughts. The other thing to remember is the most successful people I know, and this isn't research-based, this is my experience, that the most successful people I know will take a breath and say, that happened, now what? And that's the way of taking out that victim mentality and being more productive and more proactive about what you're thinking and what it is that you want to feel. So again, going back to this is separating the activating event, your thoughts, and the consequences. I don't want to remove emotion. I just want to make sure that it remains in its place. If you tend to fall into patterns of thinking, you could identify with your patterns of thinking, and therefore you might find some type of emotion that you tend to feel a little bit more than others, even in circumstances where maybe that's not the most productive thing. So going to a little scenario, and there's a video in there. I didn't want to throw it in because I can just put you into this scenario. So imagine this situation. So father and a son, a father heads off for a week-long business trip, comes back from the business trip and comes into the room, son playing video games, holding the dad's holding the basketball, says, hey, let's go play some hoops, shoot some hoops. Son says, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to go. Come on, I just got back. Let's go. Son's like, no, I'm over it. I played basketball earlier with Billy and his dad. So the father walks off. Later on, he's sitting on the couch watching the fight, and the son comes in with the basketball, says, hey, Dad, let's go shoot hoops. And he's like, yeah, I'm not into it. So he's like, oh, come on, let's go. Dad blows up and says, you know what? Why don't you go shoot hoops with Billy and his dad, right? Get lost on watching the fight, right? So in that scenario, breaking that down a little bit, so activating event, I asked my son to play catch after returning from a week-long business trip, and he said no. My heat of the moment thought was, my son doesn't want to be with me. I felt bummed. I shook my head, left the room, started drinking. Thought theme was loss. Next, and again, remember, thought themes or the heat of moment thoughts can come quickly. In a matter of 3 or 4 seconds, you could cycle through this pretty quick. Next thought that popped into his head is, he's an ungrateful little brat. I was mad. I yelled at him. Because trespass, he did me wrong, right? So you can go, and the example that I gave you in your workbook, you can have anywhere from 2 to 4. I would do at least 2, but no more than 4. And then you're going to break it down, and you're going to figure it out. What happened here, and was it helpful or was it harming? In this case, the explanation was, no, I wasn't dealing with my anger, which got in the way of me having time with my son. That's what I wanted in the first place. So a self-awareness tool to help you identify either reactively or as a preparation proactively. It can be done either way. So, and in this case, this is where in the, a physical workshop, I would actually break people into groups and I would have them do them. But I will ask, and I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but is there anybody that has a example of one that they might want to walk through with the group? And we can show, because we got about 15 more minutes. So in the workbook, I had you look at the page, and it talked about certain events that have happened in the recent past. And remember, I'm not a clinical psychologist. We're not going to go into your past and talk about your young child and how it affects, your relationship with your mom. I just want to know a simple example of an event that might have happened that you didn't handle quite as well. It didn't turn out quite as well as you had hoped. Anybody have any examples?
I think I could jump in here. I don't know if you can
Okay.
hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, Joel. So what
All
do you
right.
got? Okay, so give me
So-
your example. Give me the
My example, yeah, just the background. Sure. My high school son and I are very similar, and this shelter in place thing has been, well, it's been a problem on multiple levels. He's regressed. I still challenge him, but this story really, the one from your program, really resonates with me. Because it's like sometimes it's like we go head to head, and it's like, I really want to spend time with him. I know he wants to spend time with me, but sometimes we give up on each other.
Okay, so can you give me a specific example of where that happened recently?
Yeah, I mean he has a very solid time block, or he did before shelter in place, and now he gets up around 11, noon, 1 in the afternoon sometimes, and it's like I want him to engage and be productive and go in the field with us, because the family, we get away sometimes and he stays behind, and kind of interacting with him without kind of calling him out, having a simple conversation, I guess, with him is one of the challenges.
All right. So a scenario where recently you tried to engage him and he would not engage.
There you go.
Okay. So you said, so you wanted him to go with you somewhere. Hey, let's go.
Correct.
Get in the car. Let's go somewhere. He says no. All right.
Right.
So break it down to its simplest form. All right. A specific example. This happened at this time. Yesterday, I asked him to go with me. He said no. All right. So what was your first thought?
My first thought was irritation.
Okay. But hang on. Remember, we're separating thoughts and emotions.
Okay.
What
Okay.
thought did
My
you have?
first thought was he doesn't care.
Okay. There you go. He doesn't care about what?
He doesn't care enough about us to engage with us.
Okay. He doesn't care about us. There you go. Heat of the moment thought. He doesn't care about us. So that led to, you said, the emotion of irritation.
Right.
Is that
Correct.
accurate? Okay.
Yeah, that's
What
correct.
was your physical reaction? What did you do?
I left.
Okay.
I didn't try to engage with him further. I left, and then I had a conversation with his mom instead of with him.
Okay. So let's stick with that. So he said no. You said he doesn't care. You were irritated. You left. Okay. So where does that fit in when you look at those thought themes? And actually, we'll actually come back to that. Let's move on. What was your next thought? Heat of the moment thought.
My next thought was, I hope that he can evolve, and I hope that our relationship can evolve. I hope we have another opportunity to revisit this. So there were hopeful thoughts. I don't know
Okay.
if that-
So you had the thought of, I'm going to re-engage because I know this can be better. That led to the emotion of, I don't know, hopeful. Is hopeful an emotion?
hope.
Okay. All right. What's a physical reaction associated with that?
I feel better.
Okay.
I don't know if he
Probably
does. though.
sound like you'd be relaxed, right?
I'm relaxed. Yes.
Okay. So see, what we're doing here is you're breaking it down, and you want to take accountability for the thoughts you're having and the resulting emotions and the physical reactions. And even if you can't think of the thought, so at first you said you felt irritated at the first one, so you feel irritated. What caused you to feel irritated? All right. So, and then at the end, so your emotions and reactions, are they helping or are you harming? And we could go into 3 or 4, but like right here, were those reactions helping or harming overall?
They could be either one, I guess.
Okay, well, you tell me. No right or
Yeah.
wrong answer.
Yeah. No, I think it helps me because I can move forward, but it could be a harm if I don't take the initiative, put in action steps to revisit the conversation. Yeah.
So we'll go with your first reaction. So you said at first you were irritated and then you were hopeful. So it sounds to me like you're actually processing your emotions and you went from irritated to hopeful, so that you were in a position when you talked to him, you had moved past the irritation, and now you're in a position to have an effective conversation. So it sounded to me like you were actually moving along, and this sequence was actually helping you given the situation. And again, you're focusing on what do you want to accomplish. So you could even look forward and say, when I talk to him, what are the emotions that I want to feel? So when you talk to him, what are the emotions that you want to feel during the conversation or heading into the conversation?
Probably peaceful, attentive emotions. because
Okay.
then I can let him give to me, and I can actually be open to receiving whatever he has, because he might not come to that conversation with the same emotions.
Right. So you want to be peaceful. You want to be patient. You want to be empathetic. What are self-talk? What's some things that you can say to yourself that would drive empathy and peace?
Well, I could say, number one, I love him. I care about him. And what he brings to this conversation is not me, it's him. And so I don't have to internalize every feeling or thought or word that he utters or brings to the conversation.
There you go. And that's basically how this goes. So not only did you have an event that you were able to effectively work through, it led you to now being in a place where when you address it, you are going to be more proactive on the emotional and physical state that you want to be in so that you can have the conversation that you need to have for the result that you want to have. So that is the description, and that's the example of resilience and mental performance. Is you have productive self-talk, you will more likely to have productive emotions and physical reactions. Make sense?
Yes.
Good. All right. Questions from anybody else? Did any of that, did you disagree? And I love criticism, and I don't love to argue, but I like to hear, like, did you disagree with anything, or do you see a problem with what we're talking about here? Do you not understand something? What are the thoughts did you notice? Anybody?
I would love to hear your perspective on something like that, but when the person who is trying to work on their mental health performance, if it spirals in a way that is almost unrecoverable, like what tips would you have? So I'm totally tracking everything that you said. It's a very thoughtful approach, and I can absolutely see the value in it. But I feel like when you're in the moment of those really challenging conversations, your emotions do kind of take over. What are some like crisis actions that you can maybe just like default to try and get your heart rate down so that you don't say things that you don't mean?
Got it. And that's a very good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. So first of all, I want to remind you that this is the foundations of, if you get this down, you're going to be better at the other skills, but there are more significant skills that you can learn from this. So what you might be talking about is either I'm really emotionally connected, or I've got a long history with the situation that I'm dealing with, or maybe there's something else going on where maybe an individual is dealing with, say, depression, anxiety, and they tend to get caught in a particular moment or a situation. So there's a couple things that I go with from here. Number one, it's always a good idea to practice breathing techniques, because while the self-talk will have an effect on, will drive your emotions and your physical reactions, breathing is a very good way to, and again, you have to talk yourself into breathing, is to bring down the heart rate or increase the heart rate, because your heart rate is going to match your breathing. And think about that. If I want to calm down because I'm upset, chances are if I'm upset, my heart's racing, right? So what do? We teach breathing techniques so you can calm your body and you can bring down your heart rate. So your heart rate's going to match your breathing. Similarly, if you're feeling flat and you need more energy, right? Especially immediate energy. I don't have time to drink a Monster and wait, for the effects to, there are breathing techniques called speed up breathing, where you can do speed up breathing techniques that help increase your heart rate, so your heart rate matches your breath, right? So number one, I would teach people breathing techniques. When you talk a really wide variety of potentials here, one thing that comes to mind is catastrophic thinking, where people are, worst case scenario, or either one thought over and over and over again, or one thought leading to another thought, where like the world, it all culminates in the world's about to end, right?
Sure.
So catastrophic thinking is very, very difficult. And there are some skills that you can learn. One of them I like to teach is called thinking traps. So you might have thinking traps, whether I'm focused on me, I'm focused on other people, everything is going wrong, or this one particular thing is always going wrong, jumping to conclusions, mind reading. Those are all thinking traps that you can have. There's critical questions that you ask yourself. There's cues and questions that you ask. so that you can, so if you're focused on, say mind reading, you want to stop and ask, what information do I not have? What questions do I need to ask to get more information? So breathing techniques, making sure you're not falling into thinking traps. And then I also teach several skills I call them mental agility, and agility meaning to change directions quickly. Because you're right, when you're involved in the moment, it can be very, very difficult to pull yourself out of it. I actually ran into this last night. I was having a discussion with someone, and I found myself falling back into old habits. And I found myself, my heart was racing, my muscles were tense, and the tone of voice was changing, and the volume of my voice was getting louder. And this person pointed it out to me, and they were like, yeah, this is not the same situation you were in before. You need to just bring it down a little bit. And they called me out on it. And luckily I was able to bring myself down, and we had a productive conversation. But I even found myself, even just last night, which I feel so odd. I am teaching this stuff, and I'm still falling victim to it. Right. So that is a lot of reinforcement. I try to tell people that resilience is not always pretty. We have to practice this stuff. These are skills. And that's the other reason why I like to promote them as skills, because you have to learn them, you have to fine tune them, and then you have to continuously implement them over and over again. Because even as much experience as I like to think I have, clearly last night I was not at my best. So without maybe a specific example, I don't necessarily have a specific response, but I do know breathing techniques are very, very effective, and self-talk mantras, especially if you're in a type of person that falls victim to certain emotions in certain situations.
Sure.
So for an example, my daughter, and I talk about this with her permission, she had a suicide attempt about 2 years ago, and she's has significant anxiety issues. So we work a lot with grounding techniques with her, where if she finds herself feeling anxious, she'll sit down and she'll do a 5 down to 1 grounding technique, where she says 5 and she'll find 5 things she can see. She'll say 4 and she'll find 4 things, or she can listen for 4 things, right? And then you go 3, 2, 1 so going through all your senses. So at that moment, you're now in your environment. You're now not necessarily calm, but you are aware of your environment, and you're sitting down. And the first question you ask yourself after you go through that is, what can I control? And I always tell people the first thing you control is you're sitting down. Do you want to stay sitting down, or do you want to stand up? And you ask yourself the simplest questions to find what are the simplest things you're in control of. Because again, if you're feeling anxiety and fear, you're focusing on things you can't control, or you're feeling out of control. So ground yourself and find a way to control the things that are within your control. Right. So that's just some of the things off the top of my head that I think of, but I would certainly be happy to talk offline about maybe some more specific things.
Oh, sure, Neil. Thank you so much for that, and your vulnerability, and just sharing some really challenging stories. So I really appreciate it.
You bet. Well, and I know we're at the top of the hour. I appreciate everybody showing up. You're of course, welcome to duck out. If you want to stay, if you want to ask some more questions, I'm willing to stay. If you want to connect later, I'm more than happy to continue the conversations and maybe talk about things that are a little bit more private or personal. But I will stay, and I'll stick around for a little bit for anybody that wants to talk. But I was worried. I'm always worried about time because I talk a lot. But we're right at the top of the hour.
Neil, I was going to say, there's a book, Malcolm Gladwell's new book, Talking to Strangers. I don't know if you've listened to it or not, but the audiobook is fantastic, and a lot of it talks about personal biases and how you default to certain things. I highly recommend the Audible for it.
Tony's got
it. Yeah, great book.
Yeah, right on. And I like Malcolm Gladwell. I like his approach. So that's definitely one that I will write down and add it to my list. Talking to Strangers.
I just read another Malcolm Gladwell book too. It was life-changing. He's so good.
Nice. So any closing thoughts, any ideas, any questions, concerns, comments? I of course appreciate your feedback, but I really want to focus on you, not me. Any other thoughts, any questions about the information? Pat, what do you got?
Not so much about your information, just a little maybe a technical item on your slides here on my screen, and maybe it's just because I don't do enough of this. I've still got a column of pictures over on the right-hand side of my screen of different participants, and some of your slides, the words went behind the pictures.
Okay.
So maybe if you put an artificial right margin on your typing to keep some of the words from going behind the pictures, or maybe it could be just me. Maybe everybody else blanks the pictures and didn't have them in front of your slides.
Yeah, I think that might be like a personal setting on your computer on how you view it, but I can also take that into account because I know Zoom kind of goes to a default either along the top or along the right. That's something I can definitely play around with. I appreciate the feedback. Anybody else have any thoughts of the material, questions, comments?
I thought the content was excellent. So this is a great program, very clear, very concise, and yet full of value.
Yeah, I found it pretty valuable for me because I related to what Joel brought in the meeting with his son. I also have a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son, and they also like to sleep until about noon or 1. And I'll come home from my lunch break, and they'll still be in bed. And I'll leave a note like on the railing, do the trash, give the dogs food and water, unload the dishwasher. I come home at 1 o'clock and none of it's done. They're still in bed. And that frustrates me, And so time and time again, I'm like, if I come home from work and this stuff isn't done, don't ask me to do nothing. Don't stay the night of your friends ain't coming over, blah, blah, blah. But sure enough, the stuff still doesn't get done sometimes. So of course that can be upsetting or frustrating or whatever the case is. And I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I don't like to get angry. I mean, my son's bigger than me also, so there's not so much I'm going to do to him. but it's just one of those things, and I found it helpful just to, take a deep breath, before I lash out and be like, you're lazy, and it doesn't need to go that route. It just get up here and get it done now. I told you through 2 times. It's the last time I'm telling you. Get up here, get it done. You don't got to yell. You don't got to shout. You don't got to degrade. And just, I don't know. I just found it helpful,
Yeah, that's a good point because really it's always focused on what's the result that you're going for. So rather than being a victim of circumstance and saying, oh, that made me mad, you're going to say, no, I'm mad because I was saying something to myself that made me mad, right? The situation is, you can't say the situation is frustrating. You can say the situation is what it is. Right? Mm-hmm. The result is whatever you make it.
Yeah, I got a really great example. Real quick, my son had dirty dishes in both the sinks. I told him to do the dishes. He did the dishes. I go in there and he's left some of the dishes still in the sink. And I said, Gabe, what is this? And he's like, I did my dishes. And I'm like, there's still dishes in the sink. He's like, oh, those weren't mine. Are you kidding me, dude? Are you kidding me? That I went from upset right away. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. I'm like, I paid all the rent. I didn't just pay my part. I went to the grocery store and bought food. I didn't just buy my food. I bought food for everyone. So get it done, dude. Don't ever do that again. Now you're crossing the line. And yeah.
That's cool. Well, I'm glad. I hope everybody took something from this. And really, this is the basic foundational skill of resilience and mental performance. If you can get this one down, the rest of them will be more effective. But you're not really going to get much further. Mentally preparing for something, being mentally strong, being emotionally connected, until you understand how your thoughts drive your emotions, and that your emotions are not dictated by anything but what you do to yourself. Cool. All right. Well, that's all I've got. Thank you very much for showing up. If you have feedback for me, please send it over to me either in its own form or just scan the sheet that you've got. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to get to see you all in future resilience events. Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Neil.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Neil.
See you guys.